October 30, 2025. Welcome to the space for conversation and reflection from Noticias El Salvador SV, where we explore together current affairs in El Salvador and the world. You can contribute your economic support via PayPal or through the Bitcoin QR code. The PayPal link can be found in the content description, and the Bitcoin QR code is on the cover art for this deep dive. Your donation helps us continue operating. Search for us on your favorite platform as Noticias El Salvador SV. Welcome everyone to the deep dive. Today, October 30th, 2025, was quite a day. We saw significant financial volatility, some major policy decisions made under, pretty unusual circumstances, and also some huge diplomatic breakthroughs involving just staggering amounts of money.
Absolutely. It was a day where global finance and geopolitics really collided head-on.
Our source material for this deep dive today is frankly vast. It covers everything from the U.S. Federal Reserve making a rate decision during a government shutdown, which is remarkable in itself, the instant turbulence in the crypto markets, and these massive trade deals committing, almost $1 trillion in investment?
Close to it, yeah. The numbers are eye-watering.
And then we need to contrast all that global action with what's happening nationally in El Salvador. There are some key economic milestones, but also ongoing security measures and some persistent social issues we need to unpack.
It's a real mix on the national level.
So our mission, as always, is to distill the most crucial economic and political developments from this specific day, October 30th. We want to give you the context and analysis you need. And to help us navigate the financial complexities and the broader implications, we have our expert financial analyst with us.
Thanks for having me. It was definitely a day where, the big policy levers had immediate, almost instantaneous effects on digital assets. If you need just one number to capture the sort of underlying anxiety of the day, you just have to look at Bitcoin's price action.
Right. The market reacted straight away, didn't it?
Yeah.
That sharp drop really set the tone. Bitcoin fell to $107,481.
Exactly. $107,481.
That price point alone tells a story, even before we dig into the policy details. A story of uncertainty.
It absolutely does. That wasn't just market noise. It was the market anticipating and reacting to the main event, this major, somewhat controversial policy shift from the Fed, a shift that somehow managed to bring both relief and fear into the markets at the same time. It's quite a feat.
Let's dive into that then. The biggest story on the financial wires today. The U.S. Federal Reserve. They decided to cut interest rates.
Precisely. That was the headline event, a 25 basis point cut. That brought the target range down to 3.75% to 4.0%. Now, usually, a rate cut is seen as stimulating, good for growth, good for liquidity.
Right. Should be good news, theoretically.
Theoretically. So the big question analysts were grappling with all day was, why did this cut lead to market anxiety? Why the big drop in risk assets like Bitcoin and, as we'll see, ETFs?
What does the Fed actually say? Their official statement mentioned moderate economic expansion, job gains slowing a bit.
Yeah, they cited moderate expansion, slowing job gains, a low unemployment rate, but one that had ticked up through August, remember?
For August, okay.
And inflation still described as somewhat elevated.
Okay, those sound like reasons for maybe a cautious cut, but they don't really scream panic or explain the market reaction. What was the missing piece?
The missing piece is huge here. It's the context of the decision. The Fed made this choice using only, and I quote, available indicators.
Available indicators, that sounds like .code.
It's absolutely code. It's code for the data blackout. There was a month-long U.S. government shutdown happening. And that shutdown completely stopped the release of key economic reports, vital reports.
Okay, let's unpack that. A data blackout. The Fed relies heavily on things like jobs numbers, inflation data, right? What specifically were they missing?
They were essentially flying blind on the most current, critical stuff. Think about the latest employment situation report, the non-farm payrolls number everyone watches, gone.
No jobs report.
No jobs report for the current period. Key inflation reports like the Consumer Price Index, CPI, the Producer Price Index, PPI, also unavailable for the latest month. So they had to fall back on lagging data like those August unemployment figures we mentioned.
So they're making a decision about today's economy based on data that's already potentially weeks, maybe months old.
Exactly. And that's the source of the market anxiety. Was this cut the right move for the actual state of the economy right now? Or was it maybe an overreaction based on stale information? It almost felt like they had to do something, politically or economically, despite this, huge information gap.
That really changes the perception. It sounds less like a confident adjustment and more like, maybe a slightly panicked move in the dark. And beyond the rate cut itself, the Fed also gave some forward guidance, didn't they? Something about their balance sheet.
Yes, and this is really significant for looking ahead. They announced plans to halt their balance sheet reduction. That's the process called quantitative tightening, or QT, starting December 1st, 2025.
Okay, halting QT on December 1st, what does that signal?
It signals a concrete end date for when the Fed stops shrinking the money supply by selling off assets. So while it wasn't an immediate change today, October 30th, it gave institutions a clear timeline. They now know when this headwind for liquidity is supposed to end.
I see.
And for many big investors, it was this combination, the rate cut made under a data blackout, plus this firm date for ending QT that really spurred them to de-risk, to pull money out.
Which brings us back to crypto. If the Fed cut rates, which normally helps risk assets, why did we see this enormous outflow? $500 million leaving crypto funds on the same day.
The uncertainty just overwhelmed any potential positive from the cut itself. The feeling was that policy was unstable, maybe unpredictable because of the data issue, and that triggered this massive flight. Over $500 million pulled out of U.S. spot Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs combined, just on October 30th.
$500 million in one day? That's a huge number. Is that close to a record? And who was doing the selling? Was it broad-based or concentrated?
It's certainly up there in terms of single-day outflows, a really extreme signal of institutional bearishness. And we can actually see who led the charge. Fidelity was the biggest mover. They pulled $164.4 million from their Bitcoin ETF and another $69.5 million from their Ethereum ETF.
Fidelity leading the exit on both.
Yes. When a major player like Fidelity moves that decisively, it suggests a very calculated decision based on their macro outlook, not just, retail jitters. They were likely getting ahead of that December 1st QT halt, maybe thinking the rate cut wasn't enough or wasn't timed right given the data vacuum.
It's fascinating, though. While all this money is rushing out of Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs, today was also the day a brand new crypto ETF was trying to launch for Solana. How did that go down amidst all this turmoil?
Yes, the Solana ETF debut. It's a really interesting little case study in market segmentation and maybe fee sensitivity too. Grayscale launched their spot Solana ETF, ticker GSOL. It had a pretty modest start, about $1.4 million in net inflows on trading volume of roughly $4.9 million.
Okay, $1.4 million, and that doesn't sound too bad on a rough day.
Not terrible, but you have to contrast it with its main competitor, Bitwise's BSOL. BSOL launched just the day before, October 29th, and it pulled in $46.5 million in inflows.
Wow, $46.5 million versus $1.4 million, so it's a massive difference. They're both tracking Solana, right? What explains that huge gap?
It really seems to come down to the fees, especially for the institutional buyers who drive these early flows. Grayscale's GSO has a 0.35% fee. Bitwise's BSOL is significantly lower at 0.2%.
15 basis points difference.
Exactly. And for institutions moving large sums, that 0.15% difference is absolutely critical. It really shows that even in this, cutting-edge crypto ETF space, the race to lower fees is already a major factor in winning market share.
So even as some big ETF investors were spooked by the Fed, other parts of the financial world seem to be leaning into crypto, particularly the infrastructure side. Yeah. What were the big corporate moves?
This is where you see the long-term confidence, despite the short-term volatility. The really big news was MasterCard. The payments giant is reportedly in advanced talks to buy Zero Hash, a firm that builds stablecoin infrastructure.
Acquire them. For how much?
The reported price tag is between $1.5 billion and $2 billion.
Wow. That's not just dipping a toe in.
Not at all. This is a major strategic move. It signals that traditional finance players like MasterCard want to own the actual plumbing for digital currency movement. Buying a firm like Zero Hash could let MasterCard integrate stablecoin payments directly into their massive global network, maybe even bypass traditional bank transfers for things like cross-border payments eventually. It suggests they see a friendlier regulatory path opening up too.
A multi-billion-dollar bet on the future rails of finance. What about companies already in the crypto space? Any signs of them maturing or seeking more traditional legitimacy?
Absolutely. Look at Consensus. Yeah. That's the company behind the MetaMask wallet, which is, hugely popular.
Right. Almost everyone in crypto uses MetaMask.
Well, Consensus is signaling it's ready for the big leagues. They have apparently selected JP Chase and Goldman Sachs as lead underwriters for a potential initial public offering, an IPO.
JP and Goldman, taking a crypto company public.
That's the plan. It follows them launching their own native MetaMask token. Going public would be a huge step towards mainstream financial acceptance for a core crypto infrastructure provider like Consensus.
Interesting. We also saw moves to expand access to traditional assets, but using crypto rails. particularly targeting investors outside the U.S.
Yes, that was Ondo Finance. They expanded their offerings of tokenized U.S. stocks, think Apple, Tesla, even some ETFs, onto the BNB chain.
And the goal there.
The explicit goal is to serve non-U.S. investors, especially in Asia and Latin America. They want to give these investors 247 access to U.S. assets, bypassing the usual hurdles like limited trading hours or complex brokerage setups. And it seems there's demand. That market for tokenized U.S. securities has apparently doubled since August, now approaching $700 million in total value locked, or TVL.
$700 million TVL shows a real global appetite for exposure to U.S. markets through these new channels.
Definitely.
And one more specific stablecoin development, this one in Korea.
That's right, the launch of KRWQ. It's the first stablecoin pegged to the Korean one, and it launched on Coinbase's Base network. The key thing here is its focus on regulation. It's designed explicitly with upcoming Korean stablecoin laws in mind.
Proactive compliance.
Exactly. And for now, it's restricted. Only eligible institutions like exchanges or market makers can use it. Not available for general retail yet. It's a very strategic, institution-first approach to entering that market.
Okay, let's shift gears now from central banks and crypto to the world of international diplomacy and trade. October 30th saw some really big deals finalized involving the U.S. and major global powers. Let's start with China. There was a high-level meeting between the presidents. What came out of it?
It resulted in a very specific, almost transactional agreement. The U.S. agreed to reduce tariffs on Chinese goods down to 10%.
Okay, a tariff reduction. That's significant economic relief for China. What did the U.S. get in return?
China agreed to step up cooperation in the fight against fentanyl. That's obviously a major public health and security issue for the United States. So it was basically economics for security cooperation.
How long is this deal meant to last?
Right.
And did the president seem happy with it?
The agreement itself is structured for just 1 year, with a review after that. President Trump apparently rated the meeting a very enthusiastic 12 out of 10.
12 out of 10? Okay.
But analysts looking at it see it as a very targeted deal. It essentially put the economic friction and the fentanyl issue into one box while leaving all the really difficult geopolitical problems outside that box.
Right. So what major issues weren't resolved? What was left off the table?
All the big ones, really. The status of Taiwan, U.S. pressure on China regarding Xinjiang, China's buying of Russian energy, the war in Ukraine. None of those saw any fundamental shift or development. The sources are quite clear that China stated it wouldn't change its policies on those core issues just because of U.S. pressure.
So this deal was more like a temporary truce on specific items, not a broad reset of the relationship.
Exactly. An economic concession tied to a specific security concern, not a resolution of the fundamental power competition.
But they are planning to keep talking. Future visits.
Yes, apparently President Trump plans to visit China next April. And there's potential for President Xi to visit the U.S. after that. So the high-level communication channel remains open, even if the underlying disagreements persist.
Okay, now let's contrast that limited China deal with the agreement finalized with South Korea. This one sounds like it involved absolutely massive financial commitments tying defense and economics together.
Monumental is the right word. The South Korea package was just breathtaking in its scale. It weaves together defense strategy, direct payments, and long-term investment commitments that approach nearly $1 trillion in total value.
$1 trillion. Okay, break that down. What's the defense part?
First, the defense piece. South Korea gets authorization to build a nuclear-powered submarine.
A nuclear submarine. That's a huge capability jump.
It is. And significantly, it's going to be built in the United States at the Hanwha Philly Shipyard in Pennsylvania.
Built in the U.S. That's interesting. Ties their defense capability directly to the U.S. industrial base.
Precisely. Secures high-tech jobs, transfers expertise, strengthens the alliance on a very tangible level. Politically smart, strategically significant.
Okay, so that's the defense angle. What about the money? You mentioned direct payments.
Yes. In exchange for the U.S. reducing tariffs on their goods, South Korea committed to paying the U.S. $350 billion.
$350 billion, just as a direct payment for tariff relief.
That's the first part of the financial commitment, yes. A huge sum on its own, more than offsetting any lost tariff revenue for the U.S.
And that wasn't even all of it.
Not even close. On top of that $350 billion payment, South Korea also agreed to invest an additional $600 billion directly into the U.S. economy.
$600 billion in investment.
Plus, they committed to buying large quantities of U.S. oil and gas over the long term.
So $350 billion payment, $600 billion investment, plus energy purchases.
You add it all up, and the total commitment is heading towards $950 billion, maybe even $1 trillion, depending on how you value the energy deals over time. It cements an incredibly deep, long-term strategic and economic partnership, far beyond the scope of the China deal.
Wow. Okay. Shifting focus now to South America. October 30th also brought some diplomatic tensions to the surface, particularly involving Brazil and the U.S. What was the issue there?
Brazil's President Lula da Silva issued a very direct, very public warning about negotiations with the U.S. He stated quite clearly that any talks will basically stall if Senator Marco Rubio is part of the U.S. negotiating team.
Naming a specific senator. Why?
Lula explicitly cited Rubio's well-known, very strong opposition to governments that Brazil considers key regional allies, specifically Venezuela, Cuba, and Argentina.
So internal U.S. politics, or at least the personnel choices, are directly impacting high-level diplomacy with Brazil. That's quite a statement from Lula.
It really highlights the friction point, doesn't it? A delicate moment for U.S.-Brazil relations.
And speaking of Venezuela, there was also a pretty explosive claim coming from President Maduro today.
Yes, extremely high stakes. President Maduro announced that Venezuelan intelligence had uncovered an alleged plot by the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA.
A CIA plot. To do what?
According to Maduro, the plan was for the CIA to stage some kind of attack on a U.S. vessel near Trinidad and Tobago. The alleged goal was then to blame Venezuela for the attack, creating a pretext for some kind of escalation, diplomatic, or potentially even military.
That's a very serious accusation. Did he offer evidence? What's the context?
Details beyond the claim itself are scarce in our sources. Maduro stated that because of this alleged plot, Venezuela was reaching out to Trinidad and Tobago to call for peace and cooperation. It certainly underscores the incredibly deep mistrust and the high tensions that exist between Caracas and Washington and within the wider Caribbean region.
Definitely a situation to watch. Now, looking at the broader global economy, what's the long-term picture for commodities looking like? Any forecasts out today?
Yes, the World Bank released a forecast, and it's actually quite bearish on commodities. They're predicting that global commodity prices will fall pretty sharply in 2026, reaching their lowest levels in about 6 years.
Lowest in 6 years. Why? What's driving that?
The main reason cited is a structural oversupply of petroleum, just too much oil sloshing around the market.
Interesting. How does that forecast relate back to those huge trade deals we just discussed, especially the South Korean one with the oil and gas purchases?
It's highly relevant. If the World Bank is right about falling energy prices due to oversupply, then locking in long-term purchase agreements for U.S. oil and gas now, like South Korea just did, looks even more strategically valuable for the U.S. It secures demand even if global prices soften.
A hedge against future deflationary pressure in energy markets. Makes sense. And quickly, what's the economic outlook closer to home in Mexico?
Mexican banks are forecasting what they call a slight recovery for the economy there in 2025.
Just slight.
Yes, they contrast that with a prediction of a firmer recovery taking hold in 2026. So it suggests things are improving, but maybe gradually over the next year or two.
Okay. We also need to cover the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. Reporting neutrally, what were the developments on the ground reported today, October 30th?
The reports indicate a significant tactical gain for Russian forces. They apparently cut the main road that supplies the city of Pokrovsk from Pavlograd.
Cutting the main supply road. That effectively surrounds the city, doesn't it?
It puts it under immense pressure, yes. Makes resupply very difficult. Reports also said the gray zone, the contested territory, expanded towards the center and north of Pokrovsk. And Russian forces were continuing their push towards another town, Mirnograd, and deeper into the Dnipropetrovsk region. So advances on multiple axes.
A difficult situation unfolding there, and tragically on the same day, the Caribbean was dealing with a major natural disaster.
Yes, Hurricane Melissa caused severe damage. Jamaica was officially declared a catastrophic zone.
Catastrophic zone? That sounds dire. Was international help coming?
It was starting to mobilize. Spain offered to send a campaign hospital to help with medical needs. Cuba also reported suffering significant damage from the same hurricane, highlighting the storm's regional impact.
Tough time for that region. Okay, let's pivot now. We're going to bring our focus entirely onto the national developments within El Salvador on this date, October 30th. We need to look at the economy, security, social issues. It's a complex picture. Let's start with the economy. There was a pretty major milestone reported in the agricultural sector.
Yes, this one is quite significant, especially symbolically. For the first time in 13 years, the export income from coffee actually surpassed the income from sugar.
Coffee over sugar after 13 years. Is that just a small change or a big shift?
It looks like a pretty substantial shift. Based on the numbers, coffee exports reportedly grew by a very strong 28.5%. That contrasts sharply with sugar exports, which actually saw an 11.2% drop in income.
Wow, 28.5% growth for coffee versus an 11% drop for sugar.
Yeah.
That suggests something structural might be happening, maybe a shift towards higher value coffee or real trouble in the sugar market?
It could be a combination of factors, yes. Definitely a noteworthy development for the agricultural economy.
And the government seems to be investing in that sector's future, too.
They announced a $7.5 million investment specifically for modernizing the National School of Agriculture. And separately, on a more immediate social welfare front, the Legislative Assembly did something interesting. They approved advancing the aguinaldos.
The Christmas bonuses.
Yeah.
Advancing them. When are they normally paid?
Usually later in the year, closer to December. This approval means the bonuses for retiree pensions and also for alimony payments will be paid out earlier. It passed easily with 59 votes.
For our listeners who might not be familiar, what's the purpose of paying these bonuses early? Is it like a stimulus?
It functions partly like a small targeted stimulus, yes, but it's primarily a social support measure. The aguinaldo is a mandatory bonus. Paying it early puts cash directly into the hands of retirees and alimony recipients groups, often facing financial pressure well before the holidays. It's meant to ease that strain, provide a bit of breathing room.
Got it. So looking at the bigger picture, what's the general feeling among analysts about El Salvador's overall economic management right now?
The general assessment reported today was actually quite positive. Analysts affirmed that the actions being taken by the executive branch are seen as effective in preventing economic crises.
So a vote of confidence in the current stability measures.
Broadly speaking, yes. Though, as we'll discuss, that positive view has to be balanced against some other indicators, particularly around poverty.
Right. Before we get to those challenges, there was also progress reported on the infrastructure and technology fronts.
Yes, a couple of key developments. Tigo, the telecom company, officially launched its 5G network in El Salvador today. That's a big step for connectivity.
5G rolling out, okay.
And down at the port of Acayutla, they reported a record operational month, handling 30,000 containers. That suggests trade flows are strong, or at least port efficiency has improved significantly.
30,000 containers is a lot for Acayutla.
It is. And related to transport infrastructure, the report also mentioned that the second phase of the expansion project at the El Salvador International Airport is now 40% complete. So tangible progress on that major project, too.
Okay, lots happening on the economic and infrastructure side. We're going to pause for just a moment here. Before we dive into the really critical topics of security, the state of exception, and the social situation in El Salvador, we just want to quickly thank you, our listener. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the complex events of October 30th, 2025. Putting together this level of detailed analysis takes time and resources. If you find these discussions valuable, please consider supporting our work. You can contribute easily via PayPal. The link is right there in the description. Or you can use the Bitcoin QR code, which you'll find on the cover art for this deep dive. Every donation truly helps us keep going and continue providing this context. Thanks again. All right, let's get back to El Salvador on October 30th. The dominant theme in legislative news continues to be security, specifically the régimen de excepción, the state of exception.
Yes, that was extended again today. The Legislative Assembly approved the 44th extension.
The 44th extension. Is there any end in sight, or what's the official line?
The official line, as stated today by legislator Caleb Navarro, is quite clear. He said they will continue proroguing it, quote, as many times as necessary.
As many times as necessary. So an open-ended commitment to maintaining these extraordinary security powers.
That's the clear message, yes.
And the government often points to homicide statistics as the justification for these extensions. What were the numbers for today, October 30th?
Today itself closed with 0 homicides reported nationally, and that brought the total for the month of October up to 22 days without any homicides recorded. That statistic is consistently used to argue for the policy's effectiveness in improving public safety.
0 homicides is obviously a positive outcome, but the conversation around justice and security under the state of exception is more complex, isn't it? There are concerns about due process, political freedoms.
It's incredibly complex, and the sources today really highlight that contrast. On one hand, you see the judicial system processing cases related to gang activity. For instance, 4 gang members were sentenced today to 15 years in prison for extortion committed in Cojutepeque. So action against organized crime is happening?
Okay, enforcement against gangs.
But on the other hand, you have cases involving activists. A court decided today that activist Alejandra Enriquez and community leader Jose Angel Perez must remain in provisional detention.
And what are they accused of?
Public disorder and resistance. But these charges stem from their participation in what was described as a peaceful protest aimed at preventing the eviction of campesinos, small farmers.
So, holding peaceful protesters in detention while celebrating zero homicides. That's the tension point.
It's a significant point of contention, yes. Human rights groups raise serious questions about the broad application of the state of exception and its impact on fundamental rights like freedom of assembly, contrasting it with the security gains.
And there was also news today involving the government making an admission regarding some missing persons following international inquiries.
Yes, this relates to the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, the CIDH. The Salvadoran government formally admitted to the commission that two specific individuals who had been deported back to El Salvador and subsequently reported as missing are actually currently incarcerated in the country's prisons.
So they confirmed their location after being pushed by the commission.
Essentially, yes. It provides official clarity on the status of these two high-profile cases following that international pressure.
Okay. Finally, let's look at the social welfare situation, particularly public health. What are the reports indicating there?
The reports paint a picture of a system under significant strain. A key statistic is that over 60% of Salvadorans rely entirely on the public health system for their medical care.
More than 60%. So the public system is absolutely vital.
Absolutely critical. But despite its importance, there are persistent reports highlighting major problems, specifically a general lack of essential medicines available within the system and also shortages of medical specialists.
Lack of medicines and specialists. That impacts the quality of care significantly.
Immensely. It means even if people can access a clinic or hospital, they might not get the treatment or the expert diagnosis they need.
And perhaps the most concerning social indicator reported today relates to poverty levels.
Yes, this data point really stands out, especially against the backdrop of positive economic management assessments. The number of households living on less than $2.15 a day, that's the international benchmark for extreme poverty, has actually increased over the last 5 years in El Salvador.
Increased, despite the security improvements and the economic stability claims.
That's what the data indicates. It's a crucial and frankly worrying sign. It suggests that whatever economic benefits or stability gains are occurring, they aren't reaching the poorest and most vulnerable segments of the population. Extreme poverty is getting worse, not better.
That's a stark contrast indeed. And related to the country's future, there was an editorial raising concerns about education.
Yes, an editorial specifically flagged the reduction in university enrollment numbers. It called this trend a national wake-up call.
A wake-up call about university enrollment. Why?
The argument was that El Salvador's future, its economic growth, its innovation, its competitiveness, depends heavily on young people being able to get higher education and build their futures within the country. A decline in university enrollment could signal long-term problems related to opportunity, brain drain, or perhaps affordability of higher education. It's a potential indicator of eroding human capital development.
Okay, we've covered a huge amount of ground today, tracing the ripples from global finance down to specific national challenges. This deep dive into October 30th, 2025 has shown a day of real contrasts. Let's try to boil it all down. Can we synthesize the three most important takeaways from today in the next 60 seconds?
Let's do it. I'll take the first one. Global economy. The Fed's rate cut during that government data blackout was key. It screamed policy instability, right? And the immediate result. That massive $500 million plus exodus from US Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs. A huge risk-off move, even while giants like MasterCard were making multi-billion-dollar bets on crypto's future infrastructure. That contrast is takeaway number one.
Okay, takeaway two, geopolitical finance. Today was all about massive, high-stakes financial diplomacy by the U.S. Two tracks. First, the limited transactional deal with China, lower tariffs for fentanyl help. Second, the absolutely enormous strategic deal with South Korea, nearly $950 billion combining defense, that's sub-built in the U.S., and huge investment commitments. Big money shaping geopolitics.
Right. And takeaway number three brings us to El Salvador. The key national economic news was coffee exports finally overtaking sugar after 13 years, a sign of some positive agricultural shift. But you have to contrast that sharply with the legislature approving the 44th extension of the state of exception, cementing the focus on security alongside those deeply concerning reports of rising extreme poverty and challenges in health and education. That national contrast is crucial.
Excellent summary of a very complex day. Now, for our final provocative thought, drawing on that World Bank forecast about falling commodity prices and thinking about these huge deals the U.S. just locked in, what should our listeners be pondering?
Okay, think about this. The World Bank predicts global commodities, especially oil, are heading for a multi-year low starting in 2026 because of oversupply. So, deflationary pressures are potentially coming. Now, consider the massive front-loaded commitments the U.S. secured today, that $600 billion investment pledge from South Korea, plus their long-term agreements to buy U.S. oil and gas. The provocative question is, are these huge diplomatic and economic deals made now actually a deliberate strategic hedge by the United States? Are they actively building a buffer to protect the U.S. economy against those predicted future global deflation?